Hey, Hare Krishna. Oh. Okay. Hare Krishna. So I will be giving class on Bhagavad-gita 1867. I'm here at Allison's house with Allison and Raja. We have our altar here behind us. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'll do
Is
my...
Alison and Raja with you to repeat after you?
I don't think that they're going to be repeating after me.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyabhari Paschachyade Shatarine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyabhari Paschachyade Shatarine. So I hope that you won't be too misguided by my poor understanding. I will try to quote Prabhupada as much as possible so that doesn't happen. And so with that being said, let's begin.
Maybe repeat the text.
Yes, so it is chapter 18, text 67. Okay. Idam tena tapaskaya. Idam tena tapaskaya. Na bhaktaya kadachana.
Na bhaktaya kadachana.
Nacha shusrushave vaksham.
Nasa sushrave vacham.
Nacha mamyo vyasuyati.
Nacha mamyo vyasuyati.
Idam tena tapaskaya.
Idam tina tapakshaya.
Na bhaktaya kadachana.
Na bhaktaya kadachana.
Nacha shusrushave vaksham.
Nacha sushrave vacham.
Nacham mamyo vyasuyati.
Nachamamyo vyasuyati.
Idam tena tapaskaya.
Idam tina tapaskaya.
Na bhaktaya kadachana.
Na bhaktaya tadachana.
Nacha shusrushave vaksham.
Nacha sushrave vacham.
Nacha mamyo vyasuyati.
Nachamamyo vyasuyati. Idam tena pasaskaya.
Idam tena tapaskaya.
Na bhaktaya kadachana.
Na bhaktaya kadachana.
Nacha sushrave vachyam.
Nacha shusrushave vaksham.
Nachamamyo vyasuyati.
Nachamamyo vyasuyati. Would anybody else like to recite the verse?
Idam te nata paskaya.
Idam tena tapaskaya.
Nabhaktaya kadachana.
Na bhaktaya kadachana.
Nacha shushrushaveh vasham.
Nacha Shushrushabe Bhaktyam.
Nacha mamyo suyati.
Nachamamyo Vyasuyati.
Idam te nata paskaya
Idam tena tapaskaya.
na bhaktaya karachana
Na bhaktaya kadachana.
na cha susru save vakshyam
Cha Shushrushabe Bhaktyam.
na cha mam yo suyate.
Nachamamyo Vyasuyati. Okay, so we will go to the word for word. Idam,
Idam.
this.
This.
Te,
Te.
you.
You.
Na,
Now.
never.
Never.
Atapaskaya,
Atapaskaya.
one who is not austere.
One with austere.
Na,
Now.
never.
Never.
Abhaktaya,
A Bhaktaya.
one who is not a devotee.
One who is not a devotee.
Kadachana,
Kadachana.
at any time.
At any time.
Na,
Now.
never.
Never.
Cha,
Cha.
also.
Also.
Ashushrushabe,
Ashushusabe.
one who is not engaged in devotional service.
One who is not engaged in devotional service.
Vachyam,
Vachyam.
to be spoken.
To be spoken.
Na,
Now.
never.
Never.
Cha,
Cha.
also.
Also.
Mam,
Mom.
unto me.
Unto me.
Ya,
Ya.
anyone.
Anyone.
Avyasuyati,
Abhyasuyati.
envious.
Envious.
Translation. This confidential knowledge may not be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Persons who have not undergone the austerities of the religious process, who have never attempted devotional service in Krishna consciousness, who have not tended a pure devotee, and especially those who are conscious of Krishna as a historical personality or who are envious of the greatness of Krishna, should not be told this most confidential part of knowledge. It is, however, sometimes found that even demoniac persons who are envious of Krishna, worshipping Krishna in a different way, take to the profession of explaining Bhagavad-gita in a different way to make business. But anyone who desires actually to understand Krishna must avoid such commentaries on Bhagavad-gita. Actually, the purpose of Bhagavad-gita is not understandable to those who are sensuous, even if one is not sensuous but is strictly following the disciplines enjoined in the Vedic scripture. If he is not a devotee, he also cannot understand Krishna. Even if one poses himself as a devotee of Krishna but is not engaged in Krishna conscious activities, he also cannot understand Krishna. There are many persons who envy Krishna because he has explained in Bhagavad-gita that he is the supreme and that nothing is above him or equal to him. There are many persons who are envious of Krishna. Such persons should not be told of Bhagavad-gita, for they cannot understand. There is no possibility of faithless persons understanding Bhagavad-gita and Krishna. Without understanding Krishna from the authority of a pure devotee, one should not try to comment upon Bhagavad-gita. So that last sentence there has me questioning if we should move forward with the program, right? It says, without understanding Krishna from the authority of a pure devotee. So I don't feel that I understand Krishna. I should not try to comment upon Bhagavad-gita. So maybe we should wrap up today early and we will pause here. I'm appreciating seeing Malini's laughter. Okay. So Krishna says not to preach Krishna consciousness to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, or who are envious of Krishna because they won't get it. They won't understand. They have too much of their own layers and interpretations in the way, and it'll be a failure. There's no possibility of faithless persons understanding Bhagavad-gita. So somehow we're coming to the same conclusion. Conclusion is never preach to anybody and chant silently in isolation. Any questions? So I found this verse in Prabhupada's lecture on it quite confusing. There's like so much emphasis on how pretty much everybody, but let's just say most of us in Kali Yuga, we won't be able to understand Krishna or Bhagavad-gita because we're contaminated by the modes of nature, especially tamas and rajas. We don't perform tapasya. We don't even have the capacity to properly perform true tapasya. It's like it's pointless. We're all faithless and envious of Krishna, and like I knew that there was going to be a plot twist because like Prabhupada's whole thing is to spread Krishna consciousness, but it was still like pretty confusing to make peace with the fact that Krishna's right there saying, "Don't preach to non-devotees, bro." Like I added the bro, but like don't preach to non-devotees. And like that seems to be pretty clear. The message in the verse. So the plot twist, right? So okay, I knew the plot twist was coming. So I looked up some lectures and conversations of Srila Prabhupada, like I typically do when I give class, because I don't know what to say on my own accord. So in one lecture that Prabhupada gave on this verse, actually it was verses 67 through 69, there was like a little snippet in there that gave me some hope. So he said, "So we are speaking to persons who are at least eager to hear." Yes, so that little piece gave me hope. Okay, so we're looking for that spark of curiosity within people. We're looking for that peep of the super soul that can peek through the layers and the conditioning, and trying to find that little bit of eagerness that may be there. And in that same lecture, Prabhupada said, still, our Krishna consciousness movement is to create the situation so that people may kindly hear about Krishna. And so what I hear Prabhupada saying in that is that desire and sincerity are more important than other qualifications like tapasya or being learned in Vedas, or things like this, that having desire is enough to qualify one to be the recipient. I believe I've heard this from Malini, and I trust 1000% that it came from Prabhupada's book somewhere, that for successful preaching to take place, there needs to be a qualified listener and a qualified speaker. And if I remember correctly, the qualification for the listener is to have curiosity or desire. I think the qualifications for the speaker are maybe a little bit more strict, like you have to actually know what you're talking about. But for the listeners, their sincerity or their curiosity is what qualifies them as a listener. And I also hear in this, still, our Krishna consciousness movement is to create the situation so that people may kindly hear of Krishna. What I hear in that is that part of our role, or the Krishna consciousness movement, is to find ways to create experiences or relationships or environments where somebody's natural curiosity will come, creating that situation so that people may kindly hear about Krishna, not that like forcing somebody to hear about Krishna, but to somehow find that they may kindly hear about Krishna through. So this is like now my own speculation of what Prabhupada's talking about, because he doesn't directly say this. So my own speculation is that Prabhupada's talking about, in a way, like meeting people where they're at, about preaching. So preaching to people in ways that they'll receive. Like my experience is that very few people will object to preaching in the form of Krishna Prashadam, no matter how many coverings or what mode or whatever. There seems to be little to no resistance to preaching in the form of Prashadam. And many people might resist it if they're told that they need to give up meat eating and sex and all of these different things. So I think it's, again, my speculation. I'm not saying this is what Prabhupada is actually saying. This is how I hear it. Is, again, meeting people where they're at and preaching to them in ways that they can actually receive. And I also, again, interpret this as in a way a warning not to go into the most confidential aspects of the philosophy right away, similar to how we're discouraged from going into the rasa dance of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam without progressing through the first 9 volumes. So that maybe in a way it's not necessary to go into the most confidential aspects of the philosophy without going through some of the maybe more general principles. Like I imagine that we've all heard about the 3 stages of realization. So there's the Brahman aspect, where like the hill in the distance looks like a cloud. And then I heard Prabhupada say it's slightly different. And then Paramatma is like, maybe it looks like something green. So that's super soul. And then Bhagavan, so that's the person, the personality, Krishna. And that's where you can see the details and like, oh, there's different houses and different people. And so again, just kind of my own interpretation of what Prabhupada is saying here, is that perhaps going straight into some of the most sublime or more personal, more confidential aspects of the philosophy, yeah, maybe it won't land as much as maybe some of the hill from far away. Maybe the hill from far away is not too intimidating. The hill up close, yeah, maybe it's I'm not ready for it, but I can hear about some of the principles. Right? Maybe I can hear about transmigration of the soul, different modes of nature, and I'm not necessarily aware that we're talking about Krishna's philosophy. I am hearing about Krishna's philosophy, but I'm not aware of it, and so it might, again, more meet me where I'm at, where I get to hear about Krishna without even really knowing that I'm hearing about Krishna. And if I have some resistance to God having being a person, having a personality, then maybe if I do have that resistance and I hear about Krishna, I'll not really take it in. But if you're talking to me about some kind of universal principle or something, then maybe I'm more likely to take this in because I'm not resisting God as a person. Again, this is kind of how I'm trying to make sense of what Prabhupada is saying. And so I know that also Prabhupada describes in the philosophy that somebody, a spirit soul's journey on their path back to Godhead, and well, I guess it begins and also continues and culminates, but that it begins with somebody being fortunate enough to associate with devotees and then becoming favorable to them. And so this is also in a way how I'm trying to interpret the verse, that, yeah, maybe I don't need to go into some of those more confidential aspects of the philosophy, because it's perhaps, depending on the time, place, and circumstance, or depending on the person rather, it might turn somebody away, versus if I can meet them where they're at in some way, and then they can become favorable towards me or towards a devotee, and then this will actually serve them more than to what's the word, to be unfavorable, to be against a devotee, because my understanding is that it can be damaging to somebody's spiritual life to be unfavorable to a devotee, and it can be beneficial to somebody's spiritual life to be favorable to a devotee. So these are all my ways of trying to get something from this through my apparently thick skull, or my apparently material brain, or whatever it is that I'm not really able to understand what Krishna or Prabhupada are saying. And even though, again, Prabhupada didn't say this directly in this verse, and I'm thinking that maybe it's actually something similar to what I already said, but I think that there's wisdom related to supporting somebody who might not be a devotee, to become favorable. And I guess this is exactly the same thing that I just said. Maybe it's important for me to hear it again, that it can be valuable for non-devotee to become favorable, because that is the beginning. Well, I guess Prabhupada describes there's many different beginnings. The one beginning that I'm talking about is when somebody becomes favorable to devotees, and then naturally curiosity arises, and then I forget the Sanskrit term for doing service without knowing that you're doing service, just by doing something for a devotee, and that can also begin to remove karma, or to water the seed of bhakti. Because so that, rather than presenting something that they won't understand, so the verse told us that non-devotees are not going to understand the most confidential parts. Like, frankly speaking, I don't understand the most confidential parts. I hardly, actually, honestly, I don't even understand the non-confidential parts, or the less confidential parts. It's all confidential. So like, I tend to become frustrated when I don't understand something, and I tend to want to push it away, like, i.e. my entire relationship with Krishna. So I can, maybe I do have realization of this part, how it could be actually off-putting for somebody who's, this is like maybe their first time being shared anything about Krishna, with somebody whose first time it is hearing about Krishna, or having something about Krishna being told to them. I can see how it could also put them away, if turn them away, put them off, if we go straight into some of the more confidential knowledge. So that was like all of my Eze speculation. Now for some real commentary from Prabhupada. So, so Prabhupada says, so it is warned, don't talk the philosophy of Bhagavad-gita to the rascals who have no austerities, who have no devotion, who's not prepared to hear. But the servant of Krishna, they take all risk for Krishna's sake. So it's kind of like whereas they would come in and say, hey, that sounds like a contradiction. And then Malini comes in and says, no, it's an apparent contradiction. And I go, yes, Achincha Veda Veda Tatma. And then I just kind of smile and nod and continue asking, like, well, how does this make sense? So this is kind of what I see going on here. It's like Krishna says, don't preach non-devotees, and then whether because you're a rebellious teen spirit like I am, or because you're a pure devotee like others, then you'll go out and do it anyway, because either you're rebelling, or ideally because you're taking that risk for Krishna's sake, because you want everybody, no matter how far removed or covered they might be, to get the benefit. And in this connection, Prabhupada shares a pastime with Ramanujacharya. He's actually one of the acharyas of Sampradaya, of a Vaishnava Sampradaya. So there's this pastime where his spiritual master gave him a mantra, and his spiritual master, Ramanuja's spiritual master, told him, chant this silently. Basically don't let other people hear you. And so, Ramanujacharya inquired, like, oh, what's the effect of the mantra? The spiritual master more or less told him, you'll be liberated. It's like really good for you. It's like even better than you eating your vegetables. It's like really, really good for you. I'm paraphrasing. It's not exactly how his spiritual master presented it. But basically that's what he said in essence. This will give you liberation. And so first thing that Ramanujacharya did, he went to some public gathering and he started chanting the mantra out loud. So then he went back to his spiritual master, and his spiritual master was angry with him. He said, what are you doing? I told you to chant this silently. I told you specifically not to chant it out loud. And Ramanujacharya said, yes, I've committed a great offense. And so whatever punishment you like, whatever punishment you think I deserve, you can give it to me. I'll go to HELL, spelling for Raja's sake. And yes, I don't mind. I disobeyed your orders. So let me go there. I'm prepared. But this mantra, if it'll give liberation, and everybody deserves to have it. Everybody actually needs this. And then actually his spiritual master embraced him and he said, you're better than me, you're greater than me. I thought that was a really sweet pastime. And actually it reminds me of a different pastime. I don't know like all the details for when it happened or like that, but there's this pastime where Krishna had a headache and he needed the dust from a pure devotee's feet to cure his headache. And so I don't know who was the one that was going to ask for the powder, but this person went and asked some devotees, and they were like, "Oh, no way! I'll go to that HELL place because I'm so fallen. I'm not pure. No way." And then I think it was that then the same person went to the gopis. I think that's what it was. Went to the gopis and asked them, "Oh, we need the powder, blah blah blah." And they said, "Oh, yes, please, you can have it. Oh, but aren't you worried that, you'll be punished?" "Oh, it's fine. No worries. Like anything for Krishna." And so that's kind of like, at least for me, connected to what this verse is pointing to. It's like, yeah, Krishna's saying, don't do that. But then like a really pure devotee is going to do it anyway because he knows that it'll please Krishna. And actually, not that like there's any like seeming contradictions or anything in any of the philosophy. Like, so Prabhupada continues and he says, so this warning of Krishna is all right, but a pure devotee, in spite of this warning of Krishna, they approach the atapaskaya avaktaya, so somebody that doesn't perform austerity and who is a non-devotee, and flatters them. Please take to Krishna consciousness. That we should do. Krishna will be pleased. Not that there's like a contradiction there. So verse 67 says, do not preach to these people. And then Prabhupada says, that we should do. Krishna will be pleased. And I think that's in the mood of the pastime with Ramanujacharya or with Krishna's headache, that a pure devotee won't care about the consequences or even the hardship. Somewhere else, Prabhupada would describe to convert one man to Krishna consciousness will need to shed hundreds or maybe it was thousands of tons of blood. Kind of, we're gonna do it anyway because that's what we do. Yeah, because even like a couple verses later in verse 69, Krishna says, anyone who tries to, this is Prabhupada's paraphrasing of text 69, anyone who tries to preach this Bhagavad-gita philosophy, nobody is dearer than him to me. So Prabhupada again emphasizes it's our business to become a little recognized by Krishna. So we should go on preaching at all risk. Yeah, so there we have it. We have Prabhupada's sanction to disobey Krishna's orders at times when it'll be pleasing to Krishna. I think it's kind of like when a person maybe says to another person, oh, don't worry, you don't really need to do that for me. It's fine, I got it. But then you do it anyway. And then that person is like really happy, even though you did the opposite of what they were telling you to do. But actually they really liked it. It's like, oh, wow, you love me so much. You even heard beyond my no. So the conclusion So I'll read the verse, or the translation of the verse. This confidential knowledge may not be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. And so my conclusion is it's true. The confidential parts of the philosophy probably won't be successfully explained to those who are those things, not austere, not devoted, or not open. And still Krishna loves to see our efforts and is very pleased by it. And so I'll give you an example. And Raja, if you can hear me, I'm going to give an example about you. I don't know if you can hear me. So I recently saw Raja. Some of you know Raja. Raja, you want to come and say hi? I think that's enough. So I recently saw Raja. He is 6. He caught a lizard inside of the house, and he was showing the lizard the different personalities on the altar right there that I think you can see, like right there, and there's Krishna and those things. So he was taking the lizard, showing the lizard around the different personalities on there. And like, I mean, I don't know for sure, but like my best guess is that the lizard wasn't doing much like intentional austerities, or like hadn't read the Vedas like in this lifetime, or maybe even the previous one. But like, I'm confident that Krishna was pleased to see Raja showing the lizard those personalities on the altar. So final words. There was this, here's Raja. Yeah, he was showing the lizard those personalities. There was this room conversation with Prabhupada and George Harrison, John Lennon, and Yoko Ono. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, in which they were discussing the Mahamantra and knowledge. And Prabhupada made it very clear that while knowledge and understanding are great and fantastic, actually we'll never be able to fully understand Krishna anyway. And at least in that conversation, what he said is that the most important thing is chanting, at least when we're comparing chanting and knowledge. Prabhupada said chanting is more important. And so I think I've seen an image of 4 things that Prabhupada listed, and or at least, yeah, so it's like health, sadhana, service, and reading. I think it was in that order. Maybe I switched the last 2, but I know for sure health and sadhana, which I hear to be chanting, were the top 2. And in that same conversation, he said something like, well, yeah, we don't need knowledge in order to realize the truth, and we also don't want to be dumb. He said something like that. He said we don't want to be dumb. If somebody comes and challenges us with some philosophy or another, we want to be prepared to argue with them, with knowledge, with philosophy, not just arguing for arguing's sake. We want to be prepared to offer rebuttal, to argue with philosophy. But then, yeah, ultimately what's most important is the chanting, and of course actual love for Krishna. So then okay, final fun fact. So I said moments ago how, yeah, we have like tiny brains. This is like one of the first conversations that I remember having with Malini. It's just one that I remember saying, oh yeah, it's like I have this mind, and it's like I have this like tiny gift wrap, and I'm trying to wrap this like infinitely large thing. And so I'm like, sometimes I move it over here, and then sometimes I move it over there, but it's just like I'm covering this like tiny small portion and moving it around, hoping to like be able to wrap my mind around it. That's what it said. It's so hard for me to wrap my mind around it. That's where that analogy came from. And so this is happening. We have these tiny mind wrappers, and we're trying to wrap the biggest thing ever. And so it's like really impossible. And fun fact, I think it's from Krishna book, but don't quote me on that part. Krishna doesn't fully understand himself because he's constantly expanding. And so he's kind of like playing tag or like catch up with himself. So he's expanding and his understanding is catching up. And so he never fully understands himself because in that very moment, he's already expanded. So that is what I have for today. I'm happy to say more things. Yes, there it is. Thank you, Laura. Health, japa, service, reading. Exactly. So there it is. So the chanting is more important than the reading. Not to say that we shouldn't read, but if we are weighing those two things on the scale, chanting gets the victory this time. I'm happy to say more things. Just don't ask me any hard questions, but I'm opening it up for questions at this time, or comments, or challenges, or corrections, anything with a C or a C sound. Questions, comments, concerns, queries.
I loved your story about Raja and the lizard.
Thank you, Casey. Yes, me too. It was very sweet to witness and not to have it as an example to use.
Raja did please Krishna, and the lizard made advancement. The
Yes.
lizard, because of Raja, the lizard may jump from lizard species to maybe a human species.
Yes. And not necessarily because Raja was preaching the most confidential parts of the philosophy, but he was inspiring the lizard's natural bhakti through even seeing the deities. Hare Krishna.
I appreciate the way you presented your class and with all your skepticism and doubts. That's very brave, very brave. And yeah, it's an interesting concept because there is 10 offenses, against holy name, and one of them is to preach about the glories of the holy name to a non-believer. And so it's like, wow. And we go in the street and we sing for everyone and we tell everybody to sing. So it seems that there is always contradiction there. And
Feel very understood.
And you feel very understood, thanks. And at the same time, your point is well taken that, yes, the devotee take risk and the devotee does that for his own purification. And the devotee, and also, Lord Chaitanya, he was not speaking like philosophy with everyone. He was just speaking philosophy with a very, very small group of devotees, like even more, very small group of devotees was speaking philosophy in general. And then only to 4.5 devotees, he was speaking very intimately with intimate aspect of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. I don't remember it's 4.5 or 5.5. Yeah. So like I really like the aspect of distributing prashadam, that everybody is going to accept prashadam the way you presented it. It's something that we can all do. Like today I was in Ocala and I have bought some bars for homeless people and I'm still having some to distribute. So today I distributed two of them. One was like, you have nothing else to give me. He wanted something else. But the other one took it and right away he opened it and he put it in his mouth. And it was so special to see that, like he jumped on prashadam that way. So anybody will take prashadam, like you say, most people, 99% of the population, maybe 99.9%. And then also when we sing, most people are going to hear the singing without reacting to it. Even so, some people do react to it. And then when it comes to the philosophy, when they, like you said, that people who are like attractive to hearing or like favorable, it says that, and you don't like that either, I know, that someone with favorable make more advancement than someone who would chant every day and do all the austerity and sacrifice. I appreciate all the point you made. It was very well prepared class, even so you presented in a very humoristic way. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Malini. Yeah, yes, I like your point about, okay, prasadam, like, yeah, that one, yeah, I think it's clear to everybody. We all know about Dheerus, okay, 3,000 plates or whatever it is before he chanted a single round. Prasadam gets him every time. It's like my made up slogan for Krishna consciousness. And yeah, even with kirtan, like on Harinam, people have no idea what it is, so they're just kind of going along with it, or they sing along, or they dance along. And I know I've had an experience at the Springs where there was people playing whatever kind of music they were playing, and then I took my mridanga, and it wasn't even loud. I think I was maybe practicing or just doing something like, relatively calm. And somebody came over and they said, "Oh wow, this is such a nice change of atmosphere. I really like what you're doing here." And like, I don't imagine the person had any idea what it is that I was doing. But yeah, this is for me an example of creating a situation where people can kindly hear about Krishna. They're hearing about Krishna, they just don't really know it. Thank you, Malini. Yes, and I also think that we should all go on strike, that somebody who's favorable makes more progress than somebody who's chanting every day. I mean, where's the logic in that? I don't know. Maybe for next time we can consider how we want to organize our strike. Any other questions or comments, quotes, queries, concerns, challenges, corrections?
Will you respond to your question?
What's that?
Will you respond to your question, or you want me to ask you that question?
Which is the question?
That how come someone with favorable make more advancement than someone who does all the austerity and chanting every day and following all the regulatory principles?
Oh, I see. I was saying we should go on strike. Yes, I welcome you to answer it, because I don't know the answer to that. You want me to answer the question? Because Krishna is not fair. That's not the answer you're looking for. Okay, let me try to come up with something. Why would somebody that's favorable make, maybe because since they don't know about the philosophy, they don't grow resistance or resentment or frustration to it the way that I might, knowing about some of the philosophy or what have you, or getting into a have to about something or other. I might do it less wholeheartedly than somebody who's just kind of on the fringe. That's what I can speculate upon. Do you want to give us the philosophically accurate answer?
This is valid. I believe what you just said. Someone like, there is a described by Srila Rupa Goswami a stage of chanting that's called Namabhas. Namabhas it's a chanting without offenses. And so, that's what we do. We clear our chanting. We chant, by chanting, we clear our chanting. However, it's described that when someone comes to the chanting, because they don't know how to make offenses and they don't know anything, and they may have moments of chanting purely. And because those moments of chanting purely, because they don't know enough to not chant purely or like that, then that's called Namabhas, and they make so much advancement. So your point is well taken. Another point that that's the way I made sense of it is let's say if you take a sculpture, someone is going to make a sculpture, like a sculptor. So he take a piece of wood, like a big piece of wood, and he wants to make a statue out of the big piece of wood. And then at the beginning, is going to chip out, like maybe he will take how it's called, like a chainsaw. He will take a chainsaw and then maybe take big piece out like that. And then after, maybe he will take a chisel. And then by the end, it's like a sandpaper. So similarly, someone who is favorable, it's equal to the chainsaw. That means like the hearts all of a sudden become purified of big, huge amount of accumulation of dirt or accumulation of covering of the soul, accumulation of ignorance. And so it's like those big chunks that come out just by being attracted or being favorable. And we can see that some people, like just by being favorable, they become effulgent or something happened in their heart. And there is a really deep change of heart. And so that's like those big chunks that, we take with Chenso. So in a sense, that advancement in quantity, if it's measurable in quantity, is bigger than the advancement that, our everyday chanting, our everyday austerity, our everyday, which are more like the chisel or sometimes the sandpaper. That's how I make sense of it.
Yeah, so how I get it is like somebody who's favorable yet not like in it, they're gonna like say shed more. Would you say because, I don't want to use comparative, but is it like because they're not as far in the path, and so the refinement is more gross as opposed to more like subtle or refined?
Something like that. Like if you take a bucket, like the bucket with all our karma in it, because chanting Hare Krishna kill karma. So if you have a big bucket and that big bucket is full of our karma, and someone will become favorable, like, there is a big bunch of that karma that goes away. And then, like someone will become more serious and more serious. Well, that big bunch is already away. It doesn't need to be done. That work doesn't need to be done anymore. But now we are maybe going to the more like little things inside the bucket that are more difficult to grab. Or like if you clear a field to grow a plant or to grow, like you clear a field, maybe at the beginning there is big boulder all over the field. And so you push those boulders away and you feel like, it's so much work. And so those boulders, they're outside of the way. It's not like they come back, but after that, maybe there will be pebbles or there will be other things in the field to clear up like that. So all of us, we went to that stage of being favorable. And all of us, we got those big chunks cleared out of the way to make ways for us to be capable of chanting. Because without those boulders being out of the way, there is no way that we will be capable of chanting on japa or chanting or reading the book or understanding the philosophy.
I appreciate your plethora of analogies, Malini. Thank you.
Any of them made sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, all of them, like the variation of like let's say the first layers, they're bigger, they're grosser, and then like with cleaning anything, like the big wash, okay, and then to get the details, that's gonna let's say might take longer to get rid of the same amount by little details than in like one big swoosh. And all of them are necessary, and it will generally be in that order: gross to subtle. Hare Krishna. Any more comments, questions? I'm seeing something in the chat where it says karma, and I'm not sure when that was. So I'm not sure what that's related to. Do you want to say anything about it, Laura?
Well, that was just in comment to asking why more favorable than others. That discussion.
You? Anything else before we close for today? Seeing some no's, seeing some silence, going once, going twice. Sold. Were you gonna say something, Melanie?
No, when you're done, yes.
Okay. Bhagavad-gita ki
Jai.
jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai.
Thank you all. Thank you, Bhakta Eze, for starting us on this program of Wednesday night Bhagavad-gita. I felt very stimulated and encouraged and amused, entertained by your class. And if any of you present tonight want to be on the schedule, please contact me to be on the schedule to present your realization and your understanding of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. You see?
Casey has a question.
I have one thing to say. It's that I wanted to do this, but I was on the fence about it. And I saw your message, Malini, and on Facebook Messenger and purposefully have not responded because I was scared. And now seeing you do it, Eze, you make it look easy, and I will commit to a day.
Oh, Jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
You better hurry up because they're going fast.
The slots are going fast, yeah.
Okay, February. Sometime in February.
Sometime in February.
Jai. Okay, thank you all. Wish you a lovely Krishna conscious evening. Good night. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Bhakta Eze. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Eze.